This school locked newborn babies together and trained them through inhumane methods to become assassins. I was one of them. By the age of 3, I could skillfully draw and fire a gun. By 5, I was learning to drive. Every day, I practiced different combat techniques, becoming an assassin no one would ever suspect. Unlike everyone else, I longed for an ordinary life, not one filled with endless fights and mechanical missions. Even so, I was the best among them. But the more perfect my skills became, the deeper the void inside me grew. Later, I discovered the internet. It was the first time I truly saw the world. I would stare blankly at TV shows, watching so-called ordinary girls put on makeup, joke around, and fall in love. That world was so far away from me, yet it quietly sparked my imagination. I wanted to escape. I wanted to be someone, not something. Instructor Hardman was like a father to me, but his training was cruel to the extreme. He didn't just forge our bodies. He demanded we close off our minds and completely abandon our emotions. But I wouldn't let him have his way. Thanks to my excellent performance, I became the first agent to receive a real mission. That was the first time I left the base and saw the real world. Streets, lights, people. Everything was so vivid, so different from the sterile training rooms. My inner desire began to swell. Finally, during a capture mission, I seized the opportunity, quietly cut the ropes, and leaped from the helicopter into a lake. I threw away the organization's pager like shedding a shackle and ran away to live a normal life. The first step was to forge an identity. For me, this was child's play. I used the internet to select a family from the data and posed as an international exchange student from Canada, moving into their home. I thought this was the beginning of the normal life I had always dreamed of. I never expected reality to become a nightmare. Soon, my foster parents enrolled me in the nearby high school. I walked through the school gates with high expectations, but for some reason, everyone looked at me strangely. My new sister Liz gave me a sharp look, tossed a piece of clothing at me, and walked away without a word. I had always been a top performer in training, yet I was treated like this. I could only try harder to fit into modern life. As the international exchange student representative, I was scheduled to give a speech. But I was too nervous. A few clumsy sentences from me triggered a burst of laughter from the entire hall. I froze on stage, my mind rapidly analyzing everyone's expressions: mockery, confusion, disdain. This feeling was more terrifying than facing a hail of bullets. Just as I was about to completely break down, he appeared. I later learned his name was Cash, the lead singer of a band, and the school heartthrob. He stepped forward and used music to rescue me from the awkwardness. In that moment, my heart felt like it had been struck by a warm bullet. Whether or not this was a first love by normal standards, I had to win him over. To get closer to him, I snuck into the classroom at midnight. Using the lock-picking skills I had learned during training, I easily opened the teacher's desk, found the seating chart, and secretly moved my seat next to his. No one would notice, but my heart was racing faster than during an assassination mission. I didn't know how ordinary people expressed affection, but I thought this was my way. Perhaps fate was on my side as our relationship gradually grew closer. However, a popular boy like him naturally attracted many admirers. Those girls seemed so soft and sweet. I tried hard to mimic their tone. They gathered around me, mysteriously telling me that he liked girls who played the school mascot. I believed them. I regret not reading their micro-expressions at the time to see if they were lying. On the day of the school festival, the cheerleaders were dancing energetically in the center of the field, while I clumsily jumped into the dance area, fully suited in a big, fluffy bear mascot costume. Suddenly, several men in black rushed forward. They held sacks and moved skillfully, but they clearly underestimated me. Even in a mascot costume, I wasn't easy to mess with. In just 3 rounds, I had taken them all down. My moves were clean and ruthless, and the audience erupted in shocked screams. But things were far from what I imagined. They weren't assassins after me at all. They were college students from the neighboring university. Kidnapping the mascot was actually their school festival tradition. I had been completely fooled and stood there like an idiot. Worse, the entire scene was captured on video. The video of me taking down the kidnappers went viral online. Everyone began to look at me with new eyes, filled with surprise and admiration, but I didn't feel happy. I was completely exposed. Sure enough, not long after, a familiar figure appeared before me and took me back to the cold, emotionless training base. Hardman, the man who taught us how to hide our emotions and how to kill, stood before me, a table full of torture instruments laid out. I braced myself for interrogation, but he instead produced a weapon I was least capable of resisting. Truth serum. Under the drug's influence, I confessed everything. I didn't want to be an agent anymore. I didn't want to be called number 83. I just wanted to be a normal girl, to talk to the person I liked, to live with my family. I didn't want to sleep alone under concrete walls anymore. Didn't want to live for missions. I thought Hardman would explode in rage after hearing this, but he just fell silent, and then he let me go. Soon after, Liz and I went to a party together. Just when I thought everything was finally settling down, I saw a familiar blonde figure. She was my old enemy from the assassin organization, Heather. No words were needed. The moment we locked eyes, the fight began. This lunatic, realizing she couldn't beat me, even tried to steal my man. But in the end, she failed. I sealed my victory with a kiss. The next morning, I was waiting at the school bus stop as usual, when a familiar yet unfamiliar voice broke the silence. I looked up sharply. The driver was Hardman. His disguise was perfect, but to me, his aura was the scent of command, cold and oppressive. He said there was a traitor in the organization who had let Heather go. I was in danger, and they needed to take me back to protect me. It sounded gentle, but I knew they weren't worried about me. They were worried about me losing control. I shook my head and firmly told him I wouldn't go back. I was not their weapon, not an asset to be taken away at will. His face darkened, and in that moment I felt a trace of disappointment. Even Hardman, who watched me grow up, didn't believe I could protect myself. But I didn't expect death to find me just hours later. While driving to school with Liz, we were ambushed. Luckily, my driving skills saved us. After escaping, I stopped the car to check for wounds and bullet holes. None were fatal. As I crouched down, I suddenly smelled a familiar perfume in the air. I immediately realized it was Heather. Liz was injured in the attack. She lay pale on the hospital bed while I sat beside her, feeling heavier than during any mission. I told her the truth, that I was a killer, that my past world was filled with blood and orders. To keep them from getting dragged into this, I planned to leave this family forever. But she showed no fear, no blame. She held my hand and said she wanted to face this together. Her voice was soft, but that moment was more powerful than any gunshot. So we made a counterattack plan. Don't be fooled by Liz's usual softness. She was braver than I ever imagined. We secretly ordered a pile of self-defense weapons online. On the day of the school dance, we dressed to the nines. But Cash, the boy I had worn the mascot suit for, changed seats for, and desperately tried to get close to, cared only about his band performance and never really noticed me. The one who truly cared for me was Roger, the boy who had quietly stayed by my side all along. I found him, summoned my courage to apologize, and was just about to open my heart to him when Heather appeared again. She claimed Roger was her dance partner. I had had enough. Heather and I brawled right there at the dance, fighting all the way to the science building. Just when I was about to collapse, Liz arrived. She struck Heather on the back with a fire extinguisher she found in the lab. Together, we finally subdued her. But the real trouble had just begun. Heather's accomplice, Knox, whom I had previously captured, kidnapped my family.
But my mind didn't stop. I knew they had more people, and we couldn't win in a direct confrontation. I had to take a gamble, so I proposed a one-on-one duel. Surprisingly, she agreed. We fought for several minutes, the situation intense and deadlocked. But suddenly, she played dirty. She drew her gun and pointed it at me. At that critical moment, my younger brother, the little brat who only knew how to play video games at home, actually pulled out a grenade and threw it in. With a loud explosion, the lights went out, and the air seemed to burst apart. The next second, a fully armed combat team broke in and subdued the traitors. Leading the team was Hardman. I always thought he only treated me as a tool, that he only cared about numbers, not people. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe in his way, this was his form of caring. In the end, Roger walked over. No flowers, no confession. He just held my hand. In that moment, I was not number 83, not a killer, not a defector. I was Megan, just an ordinary teenage girl, finally beginning to have her own story. This is where my real life began.